Hi, I'm Rose McDonough. I'm a retired home ec teacher, and today I thought I'd teach you a little bit about salmon. I never really cared for salmon until a friend of mine gave me this recipe for this wonderful marinade, and I was able to eat it. I didn't mind it too much. Since then, I've branched out and I've tried a few other recipes, and I don't mind those either. It's kind of crazy. 60 years old and I'm only starting to actually eat fish. So I've already started this particular recipe and the marinade for it. The other ones are toppings, but these are marinades. I like to take and use the salmon that has the skin on it. I bake it on aluminum foil so that when I'm baking it, the skin will stick to the aluminum foil and I can easily flake off the fish and bring it out. Into this marinade so far, which is such a great marinade, I have started out with a half of a cup of soy sauce, a teaspoon of red peppers, a tablespoon of garlic powder. It's really important that you're using garlic powder, not garlic salt. You do not want to have anything that is that salty. I have a fourth of a cup of oil in here and a third a cup of either brown sugar or honey, whichever you would prefer. If you find after you've done it the first time that that's too sweet for you, obviously cut down. And the last thing I've added in is 2 teaspoons of mustard. If you don't have dry mustard, just use prepared mustard. Just take it, shake it, because you know how mustard always sort of lets out some water first. Shake it up, rehydrate it, squirt some in. Just enough just to be about 2 teaspoons, maybe a tablespoon. And then I like to marinate this for at least 2 hours. 4 hours is better, but what I will actually do with this after I put a piece in here to marinate for the next few hours is I will put this into the freezer. And before I get it in, I slide it around as much as I can to try to make sure. And I do something a little bit unusual. I like to take my fish and I like to score it, which means you're going to go through but not all the way through. Just enough that you're flaking it open some so that the marinade gets further into the fish. So I'm going to put that in there, and later on we're going to bake this, and I'm going to put that aside for now. I'm a little bit weird about fish. I just can't stand having it drip on me. So because of that, I already have my little Clorox wipe over here, and I'm going to go ahead and wipe my hands really well. I'm going to clean the space where I have been working. I'm going to rinse my hands off. Now I would like to do my other ones. These are just toppings. You can do these right before you make it. If you want to let it sit in there, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to go ahead and start with lemon juice. So I'm going to take my lemon juice, I'm just going to squirt my piece of fish just a little bit. You can use a real lemon. I'm just using this one, which is fine. Real lemons, of course, are much better, but I happen to use this all the time as well. Then you're going to take the tomatoes and layer them on top. Maybe I will be using all this, but definitely not the juice. Perfect. I'm going to come back to this in a minute because I don't want to get my hands all fishy again. My next recipe is using garlic again, minced garlic. Feel free to use fresh minced garlic. It's up to you, but I have the jar that I'm using. I have a tablespoon of garlic, and I went in and I got an additional tablespoon of juice. I'm also going to add in parsley, and if you remember correctly with the parsley, what I always say is crunch it up. I'm going to crunch it up in here, and I'm going to add it. And then from there, I'm going to add in a good heaping tablespoon of Parmesan cheese. And I'm going to stir this up. And the reason I don't mind using my hands is because I'm going to be putting them right onto this fish in just a minute. I can lift it, make sure, and you want to make sure that the Parmesan cheese mostly gets dampened down. If it is dampened like that, then it'll be sure to stick to the top of your fish. Maybe a little more topping than I need, but that's okay. We'll just lather it on. I'm going to top it on top of here. And meanwhile, I've heated my oven to very, very hot because I like to do it quickly. You might have noticed I have a really weird recipe card here. This is because I write recipes down and then I play with them. And so this one, I have words written like, oh, 350. No, cross that out. No, cross that out. Till I got to 425. That's what I do my salmon on. 425 on the foil, 12 to 15 minutes. I use a thermometer to check it to make sure that it is done. I changed everything. This is 2 to 3 pounds, that marinade. 2 to 3 pounds of salmon that you needed. One little piece would not be enough. So if you're going to use a smaller piece and marinate it, go ahead and cut that recipe in half. And then I changed. That was too much oil, I found. So I cut out. It was supposed to be a half of a cup. I brought it down to a fourth of a cup of oil. That's all I need. That's what you do. You don't take a recipe and say, I didn't like it because it was whatever. If you seriously didn't like it because the flavor is terrible to you, fine. But if you take it and say, it was a little bit too salty, it was a little bit too sweet, take your recipe in a book or whatever, cross it out, write down what's going to make it work for you. That's the difference between good cooks and great cooks, is great cooks are willing to experiment all the time. A good cook is willing to follow a recipe. All right, so I'm putting this marinade in here, and you won't really see a whole lot of it as it bakes in later on, but it tastes so delicious. I don't really think I have anybody who doesn't really like this topping at all. Maggie doesn't particularly care for salmon, but I can usually get her to eat a few bites, at least if I have some marinade on it. Now I'm going to go over and I'm going to press the tomatoes in the same way. If you don't think it looks good enough and you want something else on here, feel free to add parsley. Feel free to put on some Parmesan cheese on here. If you are going to use something like, I don't know, mozzarella cheese, don't put that on to the very end or you'll end up with some burned cheese and you're not going to be happy about it. That's it. This is going to bake just like this. I am going to take my marinade piece and I'm going to add it to here after it's marinated for a little bit. So although it'll seem like a blink of an eye to you, it will actually be a couple of hours when we come back and finish this off.
3 different kinds just for the viewers.
That's right.
What a nice lady. I'm eating the left one.
So I have 3 different types of toppings that I did. It seems like hours ago, and it actually was for me, but for you it was 2 seconds ago. This is the one with the tomatoes and the lemon on here. This is the one that I marinated. I actually marinated it for about 4 hours with the soy sauce and the pepper flakes on it. And this is the really good one that I happen to love as well, with the Parmesan cheese that goes into it. I had mentioned before, if you don't have a thermometer, you should get one. It helps so much when you're making this. When different foods, you just need to know the internal temperature. I'm going to go to this one because it's actually the thickest, and I'm going to put my thermometer in as far as I can. I'm making sure that it is not touching the baking sheet. If it touches the baking sheet, I may not get a true temperature, and I definitely want to get a true temperature. Internal temperature for salmon, for most fish, should be 145 degrees. We are at 141, 142, just almost there. So I want to go ahead and show you. It's very flaky at this point, so if I put this in here where I already scored it across, you can open it up and you're going to see that inside it's going to have slightly pink meat, but it's the pink is part of it from the marinade. Don't think that you're eating something that's raw. You are not. You can see the steam coming out of it. This is good. I've also paired this with rice for dinner. I did a rice with a chicken stock base to it, and I just threw some herbs in top of it, and that's in my Instant Pot for dinner, and we're also going to have some spinach. So we're enjoying our dinner. Hope you make it at home and enjoy it for yourself as well. Please come back again and see us.